Well, hello, my baby gorillas. And I think that's us live. Ho. Let's just make sure we're on. Hello, you guys waiting for me? Not half as much as I'm excited to see you. Yes, thank you. This should be worth listening to. Yeah, well, I'm quite excited about listening to it as well. Obviously, when I stood for the Brexit Party, the Brexit Party were a single issue party. And those of us who were anti-globalists, I'm not talking about being internationalists, but anti-globalists, were very keen to stand, and it didn't matter whether you were left, right or centre, usually libertarian, mind you, not authoritarian. You can see all the sort of authoritarian, the other things that the authoritarians want to bring in the back of it. So this is very much not a left versus right, but and as you know, I'm a centrist, but this is authoritarianism versus libertarianism. And it's up to you who's going to decide who's going to win. But the libertarians very much believe in empowering the individual and not the state, which is certainly in your interests. But I don't have any issue with Nigel, obviously, when him and Fat Andy Neil were clashing. Obviously, Andy Neil's the representative of the globalist state. And Nigel didn't know about me, and I like Richard Tice as well, so I still like and respect both these individuals. So there's no issues from me to them, but I was quite impressed with the emergency recovery plan, and I will go on and we'll cover the Brexit Party contract, which was also cleverly written as well, and I think it's important, and I don't know how much this is going to get out to individuals. Let me just check if this is we're live streaming here.
I've got a problem that I'm pretty sure you can help me with. Yes, you will be paid for helping me. Actually,
also cleverly, right? That's great. So we've got sound on anyway. So the YouTube cancelled people watching and who's tuned in, and the YouTube, because they were over at Klaus Schwab's thing, is suppressing the channel. We already know that I've been taken off LinkedIn, just like Tommy Robinson, Alex Jones. I've been taken off Facebook as well. So these American companies are interfering in British politics. Obviously, having watched Social Network, that the Zuckerberg might have stolen the idea for Network from the Winklepicker brothers, the Winkleton brothers, that he then had to compensate for allegedly stealing the idea. And now he's got allegations where he set up NGOs and interfered with the American election, where he's done something with the mules, where people were picking up ballots and then stuffing them, and that's how dopey Joe Biden got elected. And now what they're trying to do is bring in regulation to prevent other entrants to the market. Don't forget, regulation is not there to protect you. Regulation is there to stop other entrants into the markets, so it's a protectionist club. So, obviously I was very impressed with Richard yesterday as well, but I thought we would go into this in a wee bit more depth to find out what the situation is here. I'm going to go on and speak about the Brexit Party contract, which I would humbly suggest to nice guy Eddie, Richard Tice, that he includes large parts of the very well constructed contract, not manifesto, as David Clues of Unity Use Network had said to me. So let's have a wee look at this. So this is the emergency recovery plan, obviously holding people in their house for 2 years over a cold that only affects people who have got pre-existing conditions and or are elderly or sort of people who are overweight, that destroying the economy on the back of this, even for the reduction in greenhouse gases, which is not going to be reduced until China does something about them. I think China's produces more greenhouse gases than all the rest of the world put together under the Chinese Communist Party. Unless we should start shipping the Green Party over there. They're all communists anyway, so they'll probably fit in. Just start telling them to be environmentally friendly. Emergency Recovery Plan, Reform UK, How to Grow Our Way Out of the Crisis, June 2022. Prepare in conjunction with Walbrook Economics. Walbrook Economics, don't know who Walbrook Economics. Let's go and have a wee look at Walbrook. So, the interaction of economics, politics, and capital markets. Macroeconomic research, capital markets focus, UK consumer research, social mission. Social mission, let's see what your social mission is. Macroeconomic research, core of Walbrook's economic and macroeconomic research and forecasting with a focus on fiscal and monetary policy, trade and consumer behaviour. The UK is our principal focus by our research, but our research cover European and US themes. A political decision has become ever more important in the economic sphere. We specialise in analysing the implications of global political and monetary decisions applied to the economic sphere. And I'm going to do a part 2 of Schwab, the globalist, with his wee bust of Lenin in the background, or what looked like Lenin. Our clients received regular thought pieces on topical macroeconomic themes. However, in addition, we provide tailor-made solutions and research papers on topics as requested. So, right, that's good enough of you. Evening, Steve. How you doing, buddy? So, page 2 of this. Executive summary, the problem. So this is almost like a PowerPoint slide. I thought it was going to be a document, but it seems to be a 15 slide PowerPoint presentation. Gravest economic crisis since the end of World War II. Now, we're going to hit a recession, and I'm expecting it to be literally any day now, and it could be quite a severe recession because of Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, through his deliberate economic mismanagement, is now going to produce a crisis in the whole world. America's the largest market anyway. So we're going to see there might be some economies that might not go down, but I think we'll be seeing a recession, certainly in the Western world, because of Joe, who doesn't have Alzheimer's incompetence. So, growth crisis, lowest decade for 70 years now. If you lock people in your house, then what do you expect for 2 years? Tax crisis, obviously with the lack of growth. And I've already said all this, so at least somebody's listening to me, and which is Richard Tice. Richard Tice is doing exactly what I've said, and he's exactly correct in what to do. Grow our way out of this crisis. Wee Nippy, because she's a globalist shill and a postmodernist Marxist, and we've got Gay Moby, the tranny party, the tranny Communist Party, Green Party in Scotland. Not one of them are economically literate, so they couldn't grow their way out of a weight paper bag if they were a flower. So this is the correct thing to do, and we've got two incompetence parties, economically illiterate parties, in power in Scotland. So even Tam Laird, if Tam Laird and the Reform UK party were in, we would be able to grow, which would increase tax revenues, we would get a decrease in taxation, and all our standard of living would go up. But that's not what Moby doesn't even want to grow the economy. So he wants to stagnate the economy because he's an idiot. And MD, the votes for the Green Party, is an idiot as well. So we've got an inflation crisis. So we've got low growth, This is what Moby wants, the Green Party, because they're idiots. Tax crisis, because we've got low growth, higher taxes. Instead of lowering the taxes and increasing the growth and then increasing the tax receipts, we've done it all the wrong. We're increasing taxes, lowering the growth crisis, and now we've got inflation, which is going to affect the value of your money. And then we're going to get the public sector want to increase their wages to cover inflation, which is normal, but this is because of political incompetence. Who you guys are voting for. You guys are not voting for the Reform Party, but you're voting for the Lib Lab Con Party, virtually the same party, the SNP and the Greens, who are as incompetent as each other. And they're all following the 5 parties are following the globalist agenda and not anything that's going to help you or your wallets. It's very simple what you do. You get out and put an X in a box that's not going to be the five main parties, and that will help you in your life and help the country as a whole. Productivity crisis. So not only have we got limited growth or next to no growth, especially in Scotland, thanks to Nippy and the Bennett's crew that are running the country. Now we've got a tax crisis, so we Nippies put up taxes, get less tax receipts, and thereby reduce growth. If she did exactly the opposite of everything she's done, then Scotland would be in a much better situation. And she's now going to lose the referendum for independence because she's not competent. And she's been shown not to be competent. So that's going to destroy the SNP. And it's almost as if she's the Sith in the SNP. She said she's not a nationalist. She's the anti-nationalist. And by bringing forward this referendum, which at 45% is the independent part, the independent nationalist part, are not going to overturn the unionist part, because Nicola Sturgeon has not been competent for the last number of years, and the majority of Scots will vote to remain in the EU, the Union, with England and Wales and Northern Ireland, and they will not seek independence. That'll be the second referendum, and the SNP will fall off a cliff, because then they won't get a third referendum for many years down the line, unless another nationalist party starts up, and they've not said there shouldn't be another party. Westminster couldn't deny another party who was actually a nationalist party to actually have a third referendum, but they will be able to deny the SNP for a lifetime. There won't be anything else for the next 20, 30 years that will enthuse Westminster to actually give a third referendum. So that'll be the SNP stuck. And then people are going to start looking at the record, which they've got a record of incompetence. We've got Humza useless. Guys actually call him Humza useless to his face, because he is absolutely useless. We Nippy's useless. They've got a crew of absolute imbeciles that are in politics. They couldn't run a bath. Nice guy Eddie Richard Tice is competent. He's quiet, mind you. He's quiet. He's not. He doesn't enthuse you as a leader, but he quietly gets on with it, and he makes the right decisions. And this is again the right decisions. But all of this is correct as well. Public crisis sector, worst levels for over 20 years. So we should be reducing the size of the public sector, and that would release workers into the private sector, which again would increase growth, and then we wouldn't have to import people to do it. So a reduction in the size of the public sector, and 5.3 million on out of work benefits. So we've got a massive number of people there to get back, that could get back into work, rather than actually saying, "Oh, you've got to go back to work, you've got to do this." Why don't you ask the 5.3 million people what would actually help them get back into work, or what sort of measures could be taken that would facilitate them getting back into work? There might be reasons why they can't get back into work, and these reasons are not being addressed. And rather than giving them money just to stay unemployed, you might have to, so somebody might be an alcoholic drug user and they have to get clean to start to get their life back together. Somebody could have disability where they need computers, but they can stay at home and actually work from home. And it might be easier for them. So there's and they might need computers and computer systems, but they would be able to work in a certain environments. You need to go and ask the people why they're not working. Foreign nationals should not be getting on the benefit system and just be sitting on the benefit system. So, executive summary, Rishi Corbyn's solution, exactly. I actually agree partly with this. What Richard should bring in is the negative income tax. I've already said this. And it will help both the low paid, it will decrease, as Milton Friedman said, it will decrease. So people who are unemployed, like the 5 point, will get more money. It will decrease into work, but it will boost the salary. So not only should you do the reduction of up to 20 grand to zero for the tax, you should also give them the negative income tax, which will increase their salary. So they'll get a double bump for the poorest paid, and that will enthuse, hopefully, the working and lower economic groups into earning more money. And that would offset some of what Marx said about capitalism. It would be a redistribution of wealth, and it could help those in work and with a low pay and reduce the higher the wages go up. So people up to 20 grand would get a declining pay, maybe up to 30 grand. Some people up to 30 grand would get it, or up to whatever the next band in taxes are, and it would stop before the higher earners, because there's no point in giving it to the higher earners for them to get for it to be taxed upon and then to get it back again. So that's my advice. So negative income tax, Richard, I hope you're listening. Classic socialist measures: rise personal taxations, cut personal taxations, cut corporate taxes, and reduce government spending, which is the socialist measure is increase government spending. And because of increased inflation, as I said before, there's going to be wage demands by the public sector which will increase taxes, because these wage demands, because of inflation, will have to be met through taxation. And because you're not growing your way out of growing your way out of these negative things in our economy, we're going to have a recession. And we're creating a subsidy culture, especially a corporatist subsidy culture as well. We've not received a penny. I've got 5 companies. I've not received a penny for the COVID over the COVID period, and that's an absolute disgrace. And it took a year to get my VAT tax returns. Result, lower growth. So that's what we nippies got. So don't forget, Moby and the Marxists want zero growth, because he's an idiot. And so they've got at least low growth. She doesn't want to back entrepreneurs to create the wealth and generate. She's a wee bit like Moby as well. They're two peas in the pod with their daft student politics. That's adversely affected Scotland. Inflation is going to increase and remain high. So you're not going to solve that with the policies we've got just now, because you're going to get wage push inflation as well, because inflation's high and it will then become a vicious circle. And disincentive to work, record 5.3 million out of work on benefits. Why are we paying foreign nationals to stay on benefits in our country if they've never worked? Why are we doing that? That should be repealed immediately. And we should give people who want to come over here, just share the link on Telegram. Thanks, bud. Roll on the midterms. Yeah, well, the midterms is going to be an absolute disaster, Steve. For not Republicans, the Democrats. I mean, they're all looking for new jobs. They're all scrambling for new jobs. Probably all end up in the American news programs with their bias activism. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. The Hispanics, the African American vote, have all, I think, seen the error of their ways. As we tried to tell them as your friend. If you're somebody's friend, you have to tell them honestly what's going to happen, and we were honest, and we said it was going to be a disaster. And it's a bit after the fact that I told you so. I think individuals have obviously smelt the coffee. He's obviously got dementia, and there's nothing really healthy in the Democratic Party to replace him either. They're all equally incompetent. You've got a variety of, oh, this is a woman, this is a gay, trans, lesbian, hermaphrodite, whatever it is, but it's competence you want. It doesn't matter what the person looks like, what's between their legs, or what their sexuality is. It's competence. And you've got people who are varying ethnicities but are not competent. That doesn't mean anybody from a gender or ethnicity. I'm saying that the people you've employed from these different varying groups are not competent. Look at Larry Elder. Larry Elder is a politically active, but Thomas Sowell as well. I know Thomas Sowell's a professor, but he's a highly intelligent man as well. Both of these individuals are African American. I would vote for either one of them. Both of them seem highly competent. But these are not the people. The people they've got in power are not competent. AOC, she's a buffoon. She looks fantastic. She's a beautiful looking girl. She looks like she's got a nice personality. But she is to politics what Fred West was to temporary lodgings. Which for the Democrats is that an upwards arrow? So this is a complete disaster, right? So let's go back to this. Big, bold, effective. Now, so let me just conclude on this. So this is competent. What the Reform Party have put in front is something that's competent and correct. This is the best thing. This is more competent than what the Tories have done, what the Labour Party have done, what the Liberals have done. This is competent and correct. And none in the SNP are to economics what that big fat chick in Sports Illustrated was to sport on the cover. This is competent, and you want things, and you want people who are competent. That's what you want running the country, and that's why I would definitely vote for. And I was wondering if I would vote for the SLP or the Reform Party. So whoever's standing at the Westminster elections, I will vote for the Scottish Libertarian Party in both the local and the Scottish elections. But I would vote for the Reform Party at Westminster in the Westminster elections, and you should definitely think about helping Richard out and standing for the Reform Party. He's looking for 600 candidates. He's got 2 years to find it's over 650 candidates he really needs. He should try and stand in every location. So if you think you're up to standing for the Reform Party and you're a person of high social value to Richard, I would definitely stand, because I think Richard will have a great manifesto, and this is a great thing he did yesterday by promoting this. And what do you call him? Tam Laird should do something similar and highlight what they're offering us. This is much better. So big, bold, effective, £74 billion stimulus. That's excellent. Cut tax, zero income tax below £20,000. Just think of all the people on low incomes who would benefit from that. That's fantastic. But you need to bring in the negative income tax and help them out a wee bit. That's because of the cost of living increases. So a negative income tax. That will help with the redistribution of wealth and some of what Marx wrote about in economics about the unfairness of unbridled capitalism. Don't forget, Tam is to the right of me. I'm a centrist libertarian. Tam is to the right. So I get less problem with redistribution of wealth in a capitalist society. save £1,500 per year per person. Cut costs of living by reducing other taxes. Scrap VAT on bills, save another £100 per year in households, per year per household. Scrap environmental levies, saving £160 a year per year per household. So I'm not sure what environmental levies is. You need to have clarity here. I'm not sure what environmental levies is, but I would, if I was Richard, I would not stop the move towards a or an increase in renewable energy. I think renewable energy is the future, and we have to reduce fossil fuels. Fossil fuel, it has to be gradually taken down, or a gradual transfer into renewable transportation, whether it be through jets or whatever it is. But you can also plant more trees. You as an individual can plant a tree. There's 6 billion people on the planet. If everybody plants a tree, then there's 6 billion trees per year. So just think of you and your family can do something on a personal level and plant a tree. Obviously ask permission if it's somewhere that it might not meant to be. In town development, there's trees coming out, buildings, new ones, new architectural developments that you've got them all green in the middle of the city. You can plant trees beside roads. There's lots of things you can do to actually green up the place and increase the amount of carbon absorption that would be in cities and thereby reducing exposure as well. But unless China, America and India start to reduce their carbon exposure or plant more trees then it's the rest of it, you can forget about it. If the UK was completely carbon free, it wouldn't make any difference to the CO2 exposure in the atmosphere. So I wouldn't be reducing it and increasing the problems for the average Joe in the streets. You guys saying something has to give really needs to be addressed regardless of what feelings get hurt. Exactly. Yeah. I hurt feelings. I mean, really, honestly, sticks and stones. How entitled are these individuals that they think they could go through life without getting their feelings hurt? I mean, that's just the height of absolutely self-entitlement there. I don't care if your feelings are hurt. So get wasteful government spending, save £5 in 100 equals 55 billion per year. Reduce VAT from 20% to 18%, save £300 per year per household. So cut wasteful government spending, save £5 in 100, 55 billion. Can you imagine that? You could just take an axe to half the stuff that the Westminster pumps out, and it would easily get you 55 billion. Can you imagine 55 billion going to development of new start-up businesses, stage 1, stage 2 finance? Oh my goodness. Even if you were cutting waste from the government and kicking the public sector out, they'll probably make more in the private sector, and then there would be a push for their expertise and be able to get more money in the private sector. Reduce VAT from 20% to 18%. I remember where it was £15. Save £300 per year per household. So we're nearly over £2,000 per year. And can you imagine there was a negative income tax on top of this? Unlock Shell Gas, 1 trillion plus, or level up. So I would be careful about the Shell Gas, and as I said, Shell Gas is good. So we've got economic independence on fossil fuels. We don't have to import it from exactly like Russia. But I still think the Greens are right, and we should be moving away from renewables, because the renewables is going to dry up at some point anyway. It will dry up. There will be less and less renewable energy. Yeah, there'll be less and less renewable energy. And that's going to be the situation. So I think we should be gradually moving away from CO2 pollutants. But gradually, so that it's not going to affect the average man and woman in the pocket, whether it be for filling up a car or heating their house. And obviously we're seeing increases in electricity. You think it would be decreasing, but from the renewables it seems to be increasing the price of electricity. Stimulate growth of 0.5 higher per year. Yeah, I would like to see it higher than that, to be brutally honest. I think if you start getting a fund to increase the number of entrepreneurs, stage 1, stage 2 funding, you'll increase the growth rate even higher. It's entrepreneurs that create the wealth. Reduce inflation approximately 4% over the next 12 months, yeah. Approximately, that doesn't say reduce inflation to 4% or by 4%. That's not very clear. That should have been clarified. I think it would be to 4%, not by 4%. What's the British? Let's just check what the British... 7.9. My God, that seems incredible. CPI. Let's just check this. $1.72 2019. Can we not get it a wee bit further than that? What the hell's happening here? What is it? Or just tell us the inflation. My goodness. Consumer price. Consumer price inflation. Let's see what the headline. $7.8 is. So consumer price index includes owner occupiers housing costs rose by 7.8%. So you're either going to control your inflation by increasing interest rates. So all those in variable mortgages will be absolutely screwed by increase in, and you'll probably see an increase in repossessions by increasing interest rates and trying to reduce tax. That's the way the Tories usually do it. They don't seem to want to grow their way out of the problem. They want to probably increase, and that'll mean that a lot of people with high repayment mortgages will really feel the pinch, because then they'll, with increasing interest rates to reduce inflation, then their mortgage repayments will go up, and a lot of them will not be able to afford to actually repay it, depending on how severe the increase for the reduction in inflation will be. Or Richard is correct as usual. Grow your way out of it. Rose by 7.8%. Rose to, I would take it, 7.8%. in the 12 months to April 2022, up from 6.2 in March. The largest upward contributors to the annual CPIH inflation rate in April 22 came from housing and household services. So it's creeping up and creeping up. So we're nearly 8%. So what Richard is actually talking about doing, I would think, is reducing it down to 4% in the next 12 months. I think we're getting gerrymandered into a recession. So I'd be liquidating your equities and investing in gold and silver. That's where I'd be going. Or cryptos. The cryptos market will come back. I think it might go down. It could go down as low as £8,000 Bitcoin, and then we'll see a bounce. There's going to be big things happening in the crypto markets quite soon. Encourage work, extra personal incentive to earn. Executive summary: funding our planned stimulus of 74 billion or 3.3 GDP takes tax a percentage of GDP back to a pre-lockdowns levels. Stimulus of 47 billion or 3.3% of GDP takes taxes as an average of GDP back down to pre-lockdown. So, I mean, that 74 billion has been taken from us, and only that money going back into the economy is only putting us back to where we were. So what the government has done is sneaked in massive taxes to steal more money from us. And don't forget, taxation is theft by the government. And they've increased them. So this is very easily done. So this is not pie in the sky politics like, what's her name? Diane Abbott, who doesn't know how many police officers are going to get actually taken up, and she hasn't got a clue about figures. This is very well costed. Many household savings, £5 in 100,000, 5%. £100, sorry. Many household savings, £5 in £100, 5%. Public sector savings, £5 equals 55 billion per year. Wait a minute, let me just check this. So we're all still on. 55 billion per year, 25 billion in year one, rising to 55 billion in year two. Huge opportunities to cut waste and keep service levels. Wow, that's brilliant, isn't it? And that would get rid of a lot of the dead wood in the public sector. 18 billion from increasing borrowing in year two, 0.8% GDP after 46 billion extra in year one. So 18 billion from increased borrowing in year two. Obviously the borrowing rate is still very low, but a monetary policy to curb inflation is the increase in interest rates, which will in turn dampen the economy as well, which would then probably be more likely that we'd be going into some sort of recession. 18 billion from increase in borrowing year two, 0.8 GDP after 46 billion extra in a year in year one. Self-funding on 3-year view, the assertive thereafter as our measures will grow economy faster, 0.5 per annum. So I don't know if that's 0.5. Well, I think that'll be a 0.5 on top of the existing growth rate. Let's see what the existing growth rate is. Just talk amongst yourselves. Estimate of the GDP are released on monthly. That's great. As a percentage, let's see if this gives me a percentage. So quite a large fall. So we're only just come back up to the keep us locked in the house for 2 years and just come back to the growth rate we had before the pandemic, the cold, locking us in the house for a cold. Here we go. I think this is a monthly, one yearly. Monthly GDP. So monthly gross domestic product is estimated to have fallen for the second consecutive month by 0.3%. So we're actually getting and there's now 0.9%. It's pre-COVID. So we're less than 1%. So I think, because again, this is not clear. And this is why when you're actually doing these sort of things, you have to make it clear. So many households, blah, 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 18 billion from increase in borrowing in year 2. Okay, still get low interest rates for borrowing, state borrowing. After 46 billion extra in year 1. Extra to do what though? Self-funding on year 3 view and assertive thereafter as our measures will grow economy faster, 0.5 per annum. So is that 0.5 over and above the 0.9? Or is that services fell by 0.3% on the month? So this isn't very clear either. I mean, you would think they would give you an annual or an estimated annual GDP in the last 0.2 in 3 months to April. So 3 months, so 0.8, so 0.8, 0.9. So are they talking about an increase of another 5% above the 0.9, which would make it 1.4? Is that what they're talking about? Because that's not clear. Increased tax, or are they talking about reducing it from 0.9 or 0.8 to 0.5? Not clear. Increased tax revenue, medium term, and reduce inflation due to lower prices. Increased tax revenue, medium term, so increase in growth, reduce in taxation, increase in tax receipts. Nicola Sturgeon's economics: increase tax receipts, reduce growth, reduce tax. Increase tax rates, reduce growth, reduce tax receipts. I mean, she's really to economics what Fred West was to temporary lodgings, honestly. Unlock our huge hidden asset value. Shell treasure £1 trillion under the feet, over £30,000 per household. We all know that we're not going to see the £30,000 per household, but thanks very much, Richard. I get your point. Somebody who's mining it might see, and we might see some money through the levy. This is why there has to be a redistribution of wealth to the lowest income households in the UK, and some sort of negative income tax owned by us all. Well, unless it's a state mandated thing, and even if it's state mandated, we all know that this doesn't go proportionately, and those are the corporatists. You should have measures in here to limit corporatism and actually have a fair market rather than jobs for the boys. That's rather have a capitalist society rather than a corporatist society owned by us all. Right, well, I doubt that. But anyway, transforms our national finances. Right. So UK average GDP percentage by decade. Ah, right, that's good, interesting. Average by decade. So it's gone up slightly from millennium, but we're still only averaging just about 1.7%. And is that 1.7% per year for the decade, or is that it can be 1.7% for the full decade? I don't believe that. I think that must be per year. That must be averaged out per year for the decade, I would suspect. So even the 60s, look at the 60s. Look at it strong. So we're getting 3.5% growth. British growth has declined relentlessly each decade since the 1960s. And don't forget how long we've been in. This is the period of time we've been in the European Union. And only now is it starting to go up the way. So we've almost had a reducing growth rate during the period we've been in the EU. Obviously, some people have got richer. The growth has declined relentlessly each decade since the 1960s. 2020s have been even worse, a growth disaster as direct result of lockdown. Yeah, whose stupid idea was that? Oh, that was Boris's and wee Nippy's, both the globalist shills, the World Economic Forum's men and women in positions of authority. Great. This really matters if UK matches 1980s average growth over the next 5 years. It adds over 100 billion per annum to GDP and 35 billion PA in taxes. In the 1960s rate adds 1.8 billion per annum to GDP and over 60 billion per annum in taxes. Wow. That's a lot to do. Think of all the things we could do then. If we had a little money. Only solution is a growth rate. So what we want to do is cut taxes, increase growth. And that'll increase tax receipts, and then that would help the public sector, and it would also reduce inflation. And it would also make us very internationally attractive. Only solution is to grow the cake, not to complicate, spend, and regulate and tax it. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's exactly why I was happy to stand for the Brexit Party. This is why I'll be at the general election. I'll be voting for Reform UK if they've got candidates up here. I would even put myself forward again if they stop getting bullied by journalists. And I would certainly stand for Richard in Scotland again because they've got the best policies. So what I'm going to do is a part two, and I'm going to do a part two of the contract that the Brexit Party had. And I think Richard should use what's in the Brexit Party in the Brexit Party contract, which we'll go over together as well at a later date. But let's continue with this. I want to finish this. This is very interesting. Higher growth means more tax revenues. So, and this is the same problem with Wee Nippy. Wee Nippy's doing exactly the wrong things in Scotland as well. So this is we've even got less growth in Scotland than the rest of the UK because Nicola Sturgeon is doing exactly the opposite of somebody who was competent that would actually be able to grow the Scottish economy. She's deliberately suppressing it because of her daft ideologies. Her and Wee Moby doing their student daft ass politics in Scotland, which they're completely incompetent. They're like Vivian out of the young ones for people of a certain age who will understand that. But they're like Vivian out of young ones that have now managed to lead the country. What are you saying, buddy? It's a joke, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that the Australian politician talking about open power stations as a stopgap measure to stop the power going off. Yeah, I mean they can't abandon one power source without actually having the even to exceed the power that was generated from fossil fuels. They need to be able to replace it and exceed it, and it has to be cheaper, or at least the same. If it's far more expensive, then you'll see a gradual reduction, because some people who have got more money will be able to afford electric cars, which are costing 30 grand a pop, but other people won't. But the better the batteries get, we should get our universities to look at improving the storage of batteries and get people to reduce the overall cost so that the average Joe can afford it. An electric car. We need to do the same here, to be honest. Yeah, that's it. I heard in Australia politicians are being able to open coal power stations as a stopgap, to the power going off. Yeah, well, I mean, they were stupid. They didn't. To move away to a greener generation of energy is correct, but they need to do it in such a way that it's a gradual reduction, so that it's not right, we've not got enough green electricity, so we'll just shut off the lights. Anybody that's voting for an idiot, like that's what Joe Biden said. I don't know if I can get this up. What did you do for your dinner? Wee cheeky korma, boss. Wee cheeky korma. Wee cheeky korma. I might do a wee cheeky korma tonight. Let's just see. Biden talking. Let me just see if I can get this up. I saw it. I wish I'd kept it. So,
why don't you own apartment buildings? Seriously, why don't you own these big apartment buildings? And
on to the U.S. now, where tackling the climate crisis got a special mention at...
On Monday, the Biden administration announced several major steps forward for renewable energy here in the United States. Here's what they have decided to do. First and foremost, they're going to lift tariffs for 2 years, suspend those for the importation of panels and other equipment used to make renewable energy, basically renewable energy fields here in the United States. Solar panels, photovoltaic parts and all of that. I'm sorry, I don't know all the technical terms here. But anyway, they're going to suspend the tariffs for 2 years so that we can bring in more of this, so that we can move to renewable energy. The second thing, the bigger part, is that they're also going to be invoking the Defense Production Act so that we can start making more of those things here in the United States.
Right, that's great. I was wanting to say so.
Well, 2 and a bit years in, are the lies of Joe Biden finally starting to catch up with him?
The great Australian news from Sky.
With the American economy cratering, energy prices at record highs, watch out Australia, we're next.
Yeah, you're not kidding, mate. You're not kidding, you're next.
Believing that any of this is really simply the fault of Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump or racism or climate change or whatever the current thing is this week, maybe monkeypox. People are starting to look at the man who is, sorry, let me try this with a straight face, the man who is in charge of the Oval Office. That is to say, Joe Biden and indeed the entire intellectually bankrupt so-called elite leadership class that are propping him up. Here's an example of this. Now, the other day, Joe Biden wrote or signed off on or was told about after his nap an opinion piece appearing under his name in the Wall Street Journal. And in it, he wrote these words, quote, A dozen CEOs of America's largest utility companies told me earlier this year that my plan would reduce the average family's annual utility bills by $500 and accelerate our transition from energy produced by autocrats. Well, not so fast. Even the Washington Post, which until very recently has been the modern-day corporate Pravda of the Biden administration, found this to be too much. Their fact checker, the reliably left-biased Glenn Kessler, awarded Biden's claims 4 Pinocchios, pointing out that there was no reference to the savings in the transcript of the meeting with the utility executives, nor in the readout either, and that, in fact, most of the cost reductions he's referring to come from the reduced cost of driving and are expected to kick in around 2030 when Biden will be out of office and will probably not be allowed to drive anymore anyway. Anyway, in the meantime, though, high energy prices are actually a feature, not a bug for Joe Biden and the Democrats. Have a look at this.
When it comes to the gas prices, we're going through an incredible transition that is taking place that, God willing, when it's over, will be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels when this is over. This is going to be a haul. This is going to take some time.
Yeah, it'll be a haul, all right. But anyway, if he's not lying about big things, Joe Biden is lying about small things. And again, the lies are starting to catch up with him. Have a listen to Joe Biden addressing the U.S. Naval Academy graduation recently, where he made a pretty big claim.
I was appointed to the Academy in 1965.
I can't listen to him anymore, but yeah, there was a funny one where there was a podcast where he was talking about all the things he was going to do, like stop the pipeline and do all sorts of things before that have obviously caused the disaster that the Americans are suffering just now. And yeah, that's it. We're the CEOs, the Teletubbies. In comparison to Sky UK anyway. Yeah, our Sky is terrible. I don't understand how the Australian one's so good. House plants can't drive. Right, here we go. Back to business. So, I mean, really, and obviously Swiss doing very well. Singapore, and I've said that Scotland needs to style itself in Singapore or what Hong Kong was. I was very much supporting. I'll try and get this up tomorrow or the next day. Supporting there was people from Hong Kong, and I have always supported people from Chinese people from Hong Kong, and backed them up about the terrible things that happened with the CLP. But they didn't seem very happy about me helping them. Obviously, Hong Kong was set up by a Scotsman, who I think was a libertarian liberal and a capitalist like myself. And Hong Kong flourished for the Chinese as well as other foreign companies as well. And with the Tory party giving it back to the Communist Party in China, obviously the freedoms that Hong Kong actually had are now turned into tyranny under the communists, just like wee Nippy Sturgeon. Wee Nippy Sturgeon doesn't think you should have free speech, and she thinks you should tell me what to say and what you should think. Beat it. UK has a range of strategic advantages. We should be among the best. Why are we underperforming the US, Canada and Australia? Exactly. Why are we? And they've all got Bilderbergers in there as well. They're outperforming us as well. The reason we were not doing it is because we've not got competent politicians, or certainly not competent policy in the UK. Growth really matters, of course it does, and more personal income and major increases in investment in public services. Yeah, so increased growth, reduced taxes, increased tax receipts, and then you can spend it in public services. In UK matches Australia in 2005, GDP 410 billion higher, and tax revenues 150 billion per annum greater. If the UK matches Canada, since 2005. GDP is 237 billion higher, and tax revenues 87 billion per annum greater. Wow. Britain's lamentable lockdown. Yeah, so both nippy. So if we had independence from Westminster, wee nippy would have done exactly the same thing as Boris Johnson and destroy the Scottish economy, because that just shows wee nippy. Oh, in fact, she was probably more authoritarian. Wee thin lips. Let's look down harder. So she's probably going to lose the referendum, I think. She's going to go for round 2, lose that. And then that's going to decimate the SNP because they won't get another referendum. So then you're looking at domestic policies. And as George Galloway says, that the Labour Party and the SNP are just two cheeks of the same asshole. So that's what the George Galloway always says. The SNP under wee nippy and the Labour Party under Sarwar are just two cheeks of the same asshole. So that's that. So what are we on to just now then? Britain's lamentable lockdown, right? So UK GDP performance since being 2019 is close to the bottom of the class. And in Scotland even lower because Nippy's incompetent. Well, I don't even think she's even economically incompetent. I think her and wee Gay Moby, the Bennett's crew, don't want to grow the economy, so they're not even honest with the populace. They're not. People could just think they're incompetent, but I think they're actually worse than that. I think they're a couple of communists who don't want to grow the economy, so that they get equality by destroying capitalism. But it's them, because they're communists, that they are actually deliberately destroying capitalism and destroying the opportunity to grow the economy and get wealthier. That's what, because we malcontents, we Vivian out of Vivian politics, Vivian style politics out of the young ones. Culminative in GDP growth of zero. So UK growth performance since 2019 is close to the bottom of the class. Cumulative GDP growth of 0.4 since 2019 contrasts with most of our core competitors. That is despite 370 billion of public money spent on very little during lockdown. The 4.3% underperformance versus Sweden's resulted in a 74 billion per annum loss opportunity since 2019 alone. Well done, that's very clever. Higher taxes and slower growth. This is wee Nippy's proposal. Let's higher taxes, lower growth, lower tax receipts. Let's tax higher so we get even lower growth and lower tax receipts. I mean, she's an idiot. She's an absolute economic incompetent, and so's a daft party. But like Sarwar would just be the other cheek of that asshole. Don't forget. What are you guys saying? House plants can drive. Can't drive. I need to go. See you later, Steve. Catch up with you at the end of the stream later, brother. Cracking stream. Thank you very much, my friend. So higher taxes, lower growth. Right, here we go. Government compounded their inflation crisis with the highest taxes in a lifetime. That's great. Well done, Rishi Sunak. Very, very clever. Chancellor's stealth tax raid resulted in the greatest tax hike in memory. Even Jeremy Corbyn. So don't forget, Sunak is meant to be, Rishi Sunak is an ex, what do you call him? Ex... Goldman Sachs, ex-Goldman Sachs employee, and apparently the WEF's globalist shill. That's why he's came out of nowhere, and he's become the Chancellor. Who's ever heard of Rishi Sunak? But he's the corporatist globalist man in the cabinet. Thanks to Boris, bringing all their own guys through. Huge tax increases to fund failure. Oh, that's very clever. freezing allowance with inflation at 9%. Yeah. So freezing allowances with inflation at 9% has added some £13 billion to VAT receipts, so less money in your pockets, £24 billion in income tax and NIC receipts, added £1 billion in inheritance tax stealing from you, £1 billion in stamp duty, and £4 billion in other duties, which they're also stealing from you. Lost indexation totals £44 billion. Wow, they're just stealing all your money, aren't they? Yeah, Rishi's saying just bend over and I'll just put it right in your ass. That has cost the typical household £1,500 per year. Government squeezing as inflation erodes income. So not only is he stealing money through taxation, he's also eroding your money through increase in inflation. So Sunak's double whammy. He is to economics what Fred West was to temporary lodgings. I love that. I'm going to have to think up other wee ditties like that. Any comments that I can say that are funny, let me know. So let me just see how many pages we've got. Oh, still got a few. Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Where are we? Don't lose the place. Here we go. Public sector productivity. Oh, public sector productivity. Well, they're all sitting in their house, scratching their ass, getting paid. So that's public sector productivity. So we've got public sector in black. So the public sector are the least productive, and they are just going right down the tubes. UK economies in the orange. Services in the blue, and even manufacturing, which was on the rise, is now on a downward turn thanks to the globalist shills keeping us in our house for 2 years. The public sector the public sector growing significantly now accounts for almost half of our entire economy. Wow, the public sector growing significantly now accounts for almost half of our entire economy. So we could get rid of a lot of people in the private sector and thereby free up a lot of the workforce to work in the private sector. Public spending highly ineffective and service quality declining. Public sector productivity is fallen to a 20-year low, while manufacturing productivity has grown by over 40%. Likely many households savings £5 and £100, so government should do the same. £5 saving, 55 billion to bring public spending and productivity back to pre-lockdown levels. And these cost savings, public sectors and percentages of GDP still be well over 40% of the UK GDP, high by historic standards. My goodness. Inflation, largely inflation inflicted. Inflation largely self-inflicted. Our high inflation predates Ukrainian war and sanctioning of Russia. What has led to inflation? Decades of interest rates at near 0% and QE. The impact of extended lockdown and furlongs caused to labour shortages, the huge cost impact of net zero of our energy prices, government failures to provide cheap energy security and plan ahead. Average family utility bills have risen from 1.277 thousand in 2021 to so they've increased by 600% in over a year. £600 in just over a year. Over £700 in over a year to £1,971 now in 2022. When cap lifts again in October, forecasts the rising cost of energy or utility bills is to £2,800, which is an absolute fortune. So obviously the failure of the government, the Tories, to actually do anything about the energy bills is going to have a massive impact. So you're getting an increase in taxes, increase in energy bills, and a devaluation through inflation of your money. Well done, the Conservative Party. The impact of the war in Ukraine and subsequent sanctions on Russia, rising oil and utility prices ripple affect many products, especially food. Result. Now, I think it's Holland and the Netherlands that are now food self-efficient, so they can actually generate all the food and they export food and within Holland. So what are they doing that we're not doing? The result, the Bank of England forecast inflation at 10% this year. Without urgent action, 2023 may see even higher inflation. Wow. Wow. So your money is devaluing at 10% per year. And then if you think about the public sector are going to want inflation matching. And we've just seen that the public sector makes 50% of the economy. What? Now accounts for almost half of the entire. The public sector now accounts for almost half of the entire economy. So we're almost living in a Soviet-style move towards communist-style existence, where individual rights are being trampled, and we're all working for the state. And so if we could get rid of a lot of people in the public sector, they would then work for the private sector, and we would increase growth as well. But that value, so 50% of nearly 50% of the population is working for the state, and then their value of life is going to go down because the value is going to be 10% less in the pocket, the value of their money. And then they're going to want, and there's also going to be hikes in electricity. The government can't grow the economy, wants higher taxes to pay for this. Then it becomes a vicious circle down the way. And then the public sector will want a 10% rise, which is inflationary, wage inflationary for the economy as well, because everybody's working for the government and not the private sector. Man, you want to be taking a blow to an axe to the public sector. Without urgent action, 2023 may see even higher inflation, higher than 10% forecast this year. Wow, there's going to be a big fall next year. This is going to be the biggest fall in living standards since probably the crash in 1929. We're going to see a lot of major problems. This is through either deliberate or non-deliberate incompetence from the Conservative Party, but it would have been regardless of whether it be from the Lib Lab Con Party or the SNP or the Greens. They're all equally economically illiterate, and they've caused the crash. Their inept policies. This would actually save it. This would save the situation, especially those in smaller incomes will actually find themselves in. Rise income tax threshold. So the big and bold, more growth, less inflation encourages work. Yeah. Rise income tax threshold from 12,571 to 20,000, and then that's going to be zero tax. So that's brilliant. That means more money in your pocket. All taxpayers benefit by £1,485 per year, freezing up to $37 billion for families to deal with the cost of living and spend in the economy. Abolish green environmental levies. I don't know what that is. You need to be specific. I don't agree with abolishing green environmental. I don't know what green environmental levies are, but we do have to move towards a renewable energy system. And we have to look at a whole plethora of how that's going to work out. Save average family approximately £160 per year. Lower cost benefits consumers by $3 billion. Abolish VAT 5% on domestic energy bills, saving average family £100 per year. Lower cost benefits consumers by £2 billion. Reduce fuel duty on petrol and diesel by 20 pence per litre. Save average driver £240 per year. Lower cost benefits consumers by $10 billion. That's quite a big saving there as well. Reduce VAT from 20% to 18%. Lower cost benefits consumer by approximately £300 a year. Index link all tax allowances and thresholds from now onwards. These plans will reduce the cost of living as a one-off by 4%, almost half of the OBR's inflation forecast, while providing a circa £2,100 per year average saving for all households earnings over 20,000. Our plan will help grow the economy, stave off recession. This would actually work and create jobs and increase net wages. So reducing medium-term tax revenues is a win-win. Yeah, this is brilliant. This is actually exactly what's required to be done. Whether the globalists in the name of our political class will actually do it is a totally different thing, or maybe they're looking forward to it. They can make money in a recession as well. You won't make money, but they'll make money. Grow and simplify now equals more tax revenue medium term. Yeah, so don't forget, increase growth, reduce taxes, increase tax receipts. Growth and simplify now equals more tax revenues medium term. So based 50, well, it's like BP, I don't know what that is. BP, don't know what that is. UK tax base impact billions. Based scenario of growth up 50 BPs. Our measures will stimulate growth, assuming a BP, don't know what a BP is, growth rate benefit. They are self-funding and 3 years, and by 27-28 are generating increased tax receipts of 13 billion. The government tax and spend plan reduces the cake, does not address the inflation crisis, and makes families more dependent on government handouts and subsidies. Our plan grows the cake, reduces the increase in inflation, and helps households every year. Our ambition does not stop there. Woo! Our proposals are designed to alleviate the inflation and cost of living crisis the government has largely caused. Yeah. But they are only a start. We should aim to reduce tax as a proportion. And don't forget, the SNP have now said that they're not going to bring in the free ports in Scotland, which could have had a £3 billion advantage in Scotland by creating free ports in Scotland. And we NIPPY, through our delusional economic plans, decided that wasn't a good idea. She's an absolute dullard, absolute clown. We should aim to reduce any proportion of GDP from current 70 years high of 36%, which should fall to 33% post our measures and 30% by 2030. We aim to reduce tax proportionally. Right, so that's quite good. So that's a 6% reduction in tax. We should, in Scotland, reduce our tax. I think and I was going to ask Tam Laird this before we get cut off, reduce our tax by, I think we've got a 3 pence difference, and we can actually reduce tax by up to 3 pence, and we should reduce it by the 3 pence in Scotland. Modest goals take UK tax back to Blair government in 2003. So, I mean, Tony Blair has just been an absolute disaster for the UK. Everything he did turned to a pile of shit. And I don't know why the British people kept voting for him. I mean, it was like you were in a mass immigration, incompetence leading, bad decision-making in Syria, just following the global hierarchy as usual. And, completely incompetent. Modest goals, so increasing tax revenues, increasing in tax burden on the individual. UK tax back to Blair government in 2003. In 1995, tax was 28% of GDP. This could be achieved by significant tax simplifications with real cuts aiming at benefiting many, but proportionally lower earners will gain most. This encourages more back into work, growing the productive private sector, provides a virtuous tax cycle for public investment. Tax should be clear, simple, equitable, and fair. Exec summary, Reform UK solution. All sounds good to me. Bold, big, bold, effective, 74 billion stimulus. I think this is just going over what it said at the beginning. Cut taxes, zero income tax below £20,000 per year equals a saving for everybody of £1,500 per year per person. Cuts on living by reducing other taxes, scrap VAT on electricity bills equals saving of £100 per year per household. Scrap environmental levies equals £160 per year per household. Reduce in fuel duty by 20 pence per litre equals saving of £240 pounds per year per driver. Cut wasteful government spending, save £5 in 100 equals 55 billion per year. Reduce VAT from 20% to 18%, save £300 per year per household. Unlock shale gas treasure, £1 trillion plus of levelling up by drilling down will cut the cost of bills, and also stop importing energy as well. We could become an energy exporter rather than an energy importer. Carbon based, mind you. Stimulating growth approximately 0.5% higher per year. Reduce inflation approximately to 4% rather than, well, I think it's irrelevant if it's reduction by 4% or 2%, because I think it's at 8% just now, just under 8% over the next 12 months. Encourage work, extra personal incentive to earn. Yeah, extra personal incentive to earn, yeah, because you're going to get a reduction in taxation. Pretty good by the Walbrook Economic Institute, but I've been saying this for months anyway, guys. This is just what I've been saying. So that's a great start. This is correct. Walbrook is correct in what it says. This is exactly what should be done. Whether or not the Tories, the Labour or the Liberals or the SNP or the Greens have got the economic nuance to actually do this, I think they're all following the globalist, postmodernist, Marxist agenda and economic policies. So this is what should happen. Whether it will, I doubt very much, because these parties are not doing what they should be doing. MS Stave now sums up the Dems' feeling of the pain on the working man. Yeah, but anyway, in NSSN News, we have the 6th of January. Yeah, just to distract you. Anyway, I thought it was not the feds that actually were talking, and none of the feds have been charged as well for letting them in the White House. And nobody's talking about the communists from Antifa and Black Lives Matter that were probably stimulated by the communists, by the globalist shills like Biden, to kill 30 people and burn down huge amounts of property. Nobody's talking about that insurrection, is it? Oh, stoom on the commies. So that's part one. Part two, I'll go over the contract from the Brexit Party that Richard should use. Richard's obviously been a signatory of the contract here, and he should use obviously this as a contract for the British people as well. He can take large parts out of this, and it's going to be perfectly valid. I was proud to put my name to this, proud to stand for the Brexit Party, and because they have got some great policies. So I'll do a part two of this and go through the Brexit Party, the predecessor to UK Reform Party, and what their contract with the British people, which was different from the manifesto that all the other parties just lie. They say they're going to do in the manifesto. Like wee Nippy's not giving laptops and bikes and everything else to pupils. So there's lies all over her manifesto that she's not actually done. And now she wants us to vote for her to be the supreme leader and to get dictated to by the EU by 28 unelected commissioners. Get bent. I would have probably voted for independence, but I'm certainly not voting under her nor Marxist pals and voting for it to be governed by 28 unelected commissioners in Brussels. No chance. So, that's round 1. Like, we'll do a round 2 very soon. Love my baby gorillas.